So what you're telling me is viruses could actually have a purpose. Yeah, viruses can have a purpose. This is a great interview with Dr. Peter Slane where we discuss virology and we start to ask questions as to what the bigger picture of viruses may serve the body. Remember, they're inanimate. They don't have metabolism and they are basically dead material until they're activated. I really hope you enjoy this episode. Thanks for listening. If you like the candid discussion and are seeking the truth behind the mainstream narrative, then please subscribe and share. Not only am I grateful, but those who seek the truth and wish to empower themselves and their family's health, freedoms, and future will also be grateful. Hey, everybody. I got my guest here, Dr. Peter Slane. He is now, this is maybe part two of a conversation we're having on the immune system with respect to, in this case, some virology, understanding the mode of viruses. And by the way, the disclaimer is that Peter nor I are, Dr. Peter and I are not here saying we treat or cure or fix any type of viral pathogen, bacteria, fungi, parasitic infections and or state. What we are is curious clinical providers who have a holistic approach in the body, and we're fascinated by what the body's capable of and how to help people in a natural state work with their current state to enhance their ability to adapt. That said, thank you, Dr. Peter, for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to hear your connection with the role toxicity plays in this whole process. And after previous conversations you and I have had, the role of actually what viruses are and the theories around like what is a virus actually doing? What's its like quote unquote life purpose and kind of the role it plays with in a symbiotic relationship with the body and its environment. So
yeah,
go ahead.
Well, I've had a lot of experience in this conversation, I would say, especially with you and through my past learning, doing different experiments and tracking numbers on patients, etc. Let's talk about first, kind of what is a virus. My understanding of the virus may be a little different. It's more of a holistic understanding than a clinical understanding. I was kind of forced to branch off to that understanding after seeing data after data and data on different viral titers. So is a virus alive? What do you think?
Nope.
Does it have any metabolism? Nope. It cannot generate any of its own energy. So if something doesn't have metabolism and it can't generate any energy, or it can't really be considered alive. So when we're having the discussion about viruses, especially, can my body kill this virus? So I don't like to approach it from that standpoint because the virus was never alive in the first place. And I don't feel that it needs killing because it has a purpose. So we say, well, what is the virus doing in our body? Everything on the earth that was created has a purpose. You have a purpose. I have a purpose. The trees have a purpose. Water has a purpose. So what would the purpose of a virus be? Well, we can only really deduct that from understanding what we observe about it. It has to have some kind of a purpose. And a long time ago, maybe, 15 years ago, when I first started doing muscle testing, it would allow me to look at different toxins and poisons in the body and kind of ascertain what levels of these different things are there. There are a number of different ways you can test this. It doesn't have to be muscle testing. It can be, electric. It can be a whole number of different manners. Even lab tests, you can do it, but it's much quicker to do it through muscle testing. Having said that, there was another chiropractor that I was learning from, and if we took a look at, let's say, hepatitis C titers, somebody that has hepatitis C, and you measure how much viral load is in their blood sample, right? You could measure the viral load. If you go ahead and detoxify that person using a number of different means, whether it be fasting, infrared sauna, juice cleanses, bowel cleanses, a number of different cleansing supplements. As the level of those toxins in the body start to drop, you'll see the virus titer levels start to drop as well. Now, why is that? I mean, is the body killing the virus?
Why did the virus titer levels come down? Titer means how much virus is there in the bloodstream at any given point, let's say, or in the tissues. And so I had to my curious self started asking myself, why would that be, So the more I looked at different toxins and the more I looked at detoxifying the body, I came to understand that the purpose of the virus, when you differentiate it out, every virus simply has a purpose of detoxifying or alerting the immune system to toxic tissues, okay? It'd be no different than if I had a tense area somewhere, maybe in my chest. Remember that tension that we were talking about as I breathe? Maybe there's a toxicity there of something that I haven't processed yet. Doesn't really matter if it's a heavy metal, an emotion, pathogen, etc. It still functions the same in the body. It's alerting the immune system to that there's some problem here, right? And the problem may be toxicity. And so the virus basically is signaling that a certain toxicity exists somewhere. Now, I believe personally that every virus codes for maybe 1 or 2 or 3 different toxins or poisons in the body. So when you get a cold, what is the first thing that happens? You start getting phlegm, right? You might feel a little shivery. You might get cold. With phlegm, your body wants to push stuff out of the body through the nasal cavity, and it's in a sense cleansing the body. If you get a virus in your stomach, what happens? Most of the time you vomit. So you're actually removing the contents out of the stomach. If you get a virus in your intestine, what happens? You get diarrhea. So the body is flushing whatever is in that region that needs to come out. It's a way of detoxifying and refreshing the body, so to speak. It's really no different. The virus basically is signaling to the immune system, which is the self, which is you, that there's some toxicity there, and we need to either pay attention to it or take measures to remove the toxicity, and so that normal metabolism can occur. So the basic function of toxins or poisons, I shouldn't say the function, but the end result of them is that it's poisoning some aspect of metabolism, whether in the cell, in the bloodstream, in the brain, doesn't matter what tissue it's in, it's poisoning some type of enzyme that's related to metabolism. And so your metabolism becomes somewhat less functional while it's there. And your immune system is susceptible to the exact same toxins and poisons. So some of the phase response to a virus, the acute response to a virus, is to go into an area where the virus is located, let some of those cells with the toxicity die, and then have to clean the mess up. That's pretty much the end result of a viral infection. So toxicity comes hand in hand with a virus. And I'll give you an example, perfect example of this. I measured Epstein-Barr virus in myself, okay? had some pretty high Epstein-Barr virus levels in different tissues. But I also had amalgam fillings in a lot of my teeth. And when I measured the level of mercury amalgam toxicity in my body, it was pretty high. And so I did a number of steps to detoxify myself from this mercury amalgam. And as I detoxified from the mercury amalgam, the level of the Epstein-Barr virus in certain tissues slowly started to correlate with the level of the mercury amalgam. And when I finally removed all the mercury amalgam from my teeth and had it replaced with a compatible filler, it was amazing. Probably within 72 hours, those Epstein-Barr virus titers went down very quickly because that mercury holds an electromagnetic field in your body. So every element has a contribution to your overall electromagnetic field of your body. And so do toxins and poisons. So it kind of creates a map of is the electromagnetic field efficient? And the efficiency of that electromagnetic field correlates to the efficiency of your immune system.
I'm taking that in. I love it because what's going on in my head is I've got questions. I've got more questions as a result of that explanation.
Sure.
One being, let's talk about what you recently just watched as well, which is Thomas Cowan, Cowan, for anyone who wants to look at his research in terms of awareness, because you two are coming from a very, very similar, if not the same perspective on how energy and toxicity. Let's talk about one, how that affects our ability to process, number one. And two, let's talk about some examples of toxicity in the form that the body needs to detoxify, whether it be environment. I mean, we can stick to just the environmental ones, let alone what's found in our food sources. The correlation of what you just stated and Thomas Cowan's approach, when he talked about when you're looking at a sick species of dolphin, there's a series of questions you ask that are very logical, but not being asked in the mainstream to drive behavior a certain way. So without making the mainstream quote unquote wrong or inaccurate, but the common belief or the common behavioral pattern they want to see happen. Can you give me an example of how those questions get tiered down, like in that population, or whether it's a carcass on, a species of any sort?
Sure. So for instance, your health is your own personal responsibility. Okay. Let me start with that. Nobody can create your health but yourself, which is your immune system, which is your overall approach to diet, exercise, sleep, nutrition, emotional, social interaction, etc. Let's say we're playing cards and you have a cold, okay? And I take those cold viruses, coronavirus in that case, and touch my eyes and, put the virus inside of me, so to speak. Whatever that virus codes for, if I don't have much of that in my body, my system is not going to have much of a response to the virus because it's dependent.
That locks people's hard drive up right there.
Okay.
Because remember, they are told, we're taught to think that virus is what it is, and you will have this response in these categories.
Yeah.
You're taught to fear this, Peter. So what you're telling me is, wait, that the state of the organism, the body, is the ultra determinant of the response and the effect of the interaction with that virus.
Absolutely. So you can have a virus, but you may have no symptoms, right? So why would you have no symptoms from the virus? Because the virus, whatever it codes for, whatever it's telling the immune system about toxicity, it's already met its purpose. There's no purpose left for it. So it really doesn't have much of a reaction because there aren't many cells that are willing to replicate that virus. So viruses only really become replicated if they are present in an environment that's suitable for their replication. And that environment that's suitable for their replication is dependent on if that environment contains whatever toxin or poison that virus codes for.
In this particular theoretical virus, also known as COVID-19, is actually SARS-2?
SARS-CoV-2.
Okay. And what is theoretically again, folks, this is an opinion. What is this SARS-CoV-2 coded for?
I think that it's coded for formaldehyde, personally, and some different phthalates as well come up that it's coded for. So formaldehyde is a persistent poison. It's most of the people in our world will have a certain amount of formaldehyde in their bodies. We get it from exposure to different chemicals, from foam in couches and drapes and curtains and carpets and a whole number of different places, styrofoam foam. So anyway, that's kind of what I believe that this codes for when I test against it. Now, how do you start to think about how do I get rid of certain toxicities in the body? So like I said, it's a persistent poison. So it can be it accumulates in the body the older you get. So when you look at certain toxicity curves, when I did the research and you look at toxicity levels, there's two places really that are vulnerable to toxicity. One is childhood, because they're actually inheriting a lot of toxicity from the family, from inheriting it from the mother or the father. And two, different medical therapies that may have some toxicity in them. And so that's the childhood. But when we get past childhood, really where we start to see toxicity levels start to really pick up as they're accumulating is really when you hit like 50 years old. So you've had that many years on the planet, and these persistent poisons, which are hard to detoxify from the body, relatively hard. Knowing how to do it is not that hard, but they start to increase. So by the time you're 80 or 90 years old, your level of these toxins in your body are significantly high. And we also see the level of degenerative disease actually go up at about the same rate that these toxins and poisons go up in our body as we accumulate them from the environment. So how do you get rid of formaldehyde? It's a persistent poison. Infrared sauna is actually probably one of the best ways to get rid of it. You certainly can do it through sweating as well. So exercise will detoxify formaldehyde as well. There are certain detoxifying agents that you can take that will detoxify these persistent poisons.
Could we address really briefly, not in great length, but I know there's some contrast. I had this discussion with several folks about they feel like just because they exercise and sweat that they're detoxifying everything out of their body all the time. Well, I'm an athlete and I had plenty of that going in my life and still created toxicity. And then I learned through the School of Hard Knocks that the true detoxification, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Peter, is that's why infrared sauna is more effective at actually pulling toxins out, because we're in a parasympathetic mode and sweating. It's almost like permission for the body to let go versus I'm sweating to maintain my overexertional heat, and therefore I'm in a sympathetic tone regulating my temp versus a parasympathetic tone and now just allowing things to let go.
Correct. Well, the infrared also activates phase 1 and phase 2 liver detoxification enzymes. So all of those toxins and poisons have to go through the liver. And there's two different phases, phase 1 and phase 2, making it water soluble or non-water soluble in order to get it out of the body. So it can either come out the urine or it can go out the bowel. And the infrared wavelengths are helping to activate those detoxification mechanisms. But it does more than that. Because the infrared actually penetrates the body and into the body and into cells, it actually can help the cell detoxify and remove some of the toxins or poisons to push it into the interstitial fluid and the lymphatics and then move it through the liver. So there's a difference between just exercise. Exercise, you are sweating, and it's helpful because it detoxifies the bloodstream and a little bit of the lymphatics because you're moving all the fluid. So you're turning the fluid over during exercise by a factor of 10, depending on how long you go, maybe 20, right? So all of that fluid goes through the liver and the kidneys by a factor of 10. So depending on the length of the exercise. So that helps clean the bloodstream and the lymphatics. But to get into the cells and the different tissues where the toxins or the poisons may be, you have to allow the efficiency of the liver detoxification to amplify. And that's what the infrared sauna does really well.
It sounds like we should have a separate conversation. Look for an upcoming episode on that where Peter and I, maybe if you're willing to do it, we just dive into a couple strategies at a time about detoxification, talk about phase 1, phase 2, the myths behind how just juicing might get you here and just doing this type, because I know I've come across multiple formats, multiple styles, and yet some are just absolutely not getting to what they think they're getting to based on how they're applying them, which would be a good conversation. But infrared sauna has many health benefits, and now more than ever, we need to use natural and holistic approaches to supporting a strong immune response. The most advanced portable infrared sauna in the world has just gotten better. The Thera 360, featuring TheraFusion infrared technology, has completely revolutionized personal health products with its patented infrared portable sauna. Featuring its proprietary exclusive natural health element full-spectrum infrared heating panels with tourmaline gemstones to generate an abundance of negative ions and bathe your body from every angle in gentle full-spectrum infrared frequencies and negative ions with no exposure to harmful EMFs. Not only have I found this infrared sauna effective, it's one of the best I've seen on the market. Number one, the fact that there's no negative EMFs. I'm aware of the negative electromagnetic frequencies of electricity, and many of the brands I looked at in terms of saunas did not have this feature, which means you're experiencing the positive effects of infrared sauna and canceling them out with the negative effects of electromagnetic frequencies. Number two, it's extremely affordable and portable, which means you can take it with you and you can set it up and take it down and store it. Not only is this the sauna I use, I recommend it for those with a limited budget or limited space who want all the benefits of infrared sauna and then some. Some benefits include detoxification, decreased inflammation, increased circulation, pain relief, burn calories, sleep better, to enhance immune function or your overall health and wellness. Check out the Thera 360. Go to Therasage.com, that's THERASAGE.com, and use code F as in Frank, SDW, as in speaking Dr. Wade, 360. That's FSDW 360 for a 10% discount on your new sauna. Where you're heading with this, I think this is extremely profound to change how we see what these would-be pathogens are. I mean, yes, pathogenic in a state, but also symbiotic in a state is what I'm hearing. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Right. So the pathogenesis of the virus is really only mirrored by the pathogenesis of the toxins or the poisons that are in the tissues. Okay? So a virus is nothing more than a magnifying glass being moved around the body, telling me, is my response big? Then I have some toxins or poisons in the body. However, if you've done a lot of detoxification work, and you have, you made some really great strides on detoxification, then you can move that magnifying glass around, and there's not much of a response because the pathogenicity is really coming from the underlying toxins or poisons that are located in the tissues.
In English, folks, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Peter, but that means the magnitude with which you have a response. The person that doesn't have even the sniffles or maybe just a mild sore throat is arguably saying there's a way less toxicity in that body that's of the quote unquote tagged toxins that it's after. So maybe in this case, whether this is correct, formaldehyde is low toxin in that body that has minimal response. But in that elderly person that has already a viral no, that's not it, a toxic load on their system containing what that virus is coded for, of the 380 trillion viruses in our body right now that are coded to recognize levels of toxicity. Is that?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly right. Exactly. So you have all of these viruses already in your body. I know one doctor said there was as many viruses in your body currently as there are stars in the universe, or stars in the heaven sky, maybe. So if that's true, why aren't we sick at any given point? You know, because what activates a virus is their replication. Okay. These viruses can lay dormant and you're not sick. So in the COVID problem now, they're talking about, well, maybe these patients then see a second wave where now they become sick a second time. So why would that happen in the body? Well, it would happen if they still had the same amount of toxicity, or maybe not the same amount, but enough toxicity of those coded toxins or poisons where it will make another response, another attempt to detoxify those poisons and toxins in the body. So, yeah.
I'm left with the ultimate message is your body's brilliant. And the ultimate solution is for you to take charge of your day-to-day moment and lifestyle. And Peter very adequately and eloquently put, the role is how you eat, how you move, how you're processing your current state, your body's sleep. How are you living your life, self-care or haphazardly, whether you're super dominant, sympathetic and drive, go, 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 and you don't know how to slow down, or you're in an anxious mode, which is fight or flight, which is sympathetic dominant, which does drive cortisol, which also lowers our immune response.
Yep.
So this is just a great conversation because it allows people to have a different perspective about what that bug means. That the bugs are always there. And I love that you pointed out the virus isn't alive. It's got potential based on the host. It's not alive and it does not have a metabolism. It is dormant. And if there's no need for it in your body, then it can just hang out there, coexist as a non-threat in a healthy immune response. Can we talk about, and maybe we don't get that deep into it in this conversation, we're about 26, even if when we edit a couple pieces there, but can we talk about immunosuppression, a hyper-immuno response based on maybe an article you and I just read, which I'm not sure I completely agree with that, by the way, that the body's going to have the wrong response unless it's already so overloaded and it's not recognizing. Well, before I get too far into that, it's not recognizing because it's already just having a hard time discerning self from non-self. What's your take on that?
Well, traditionally the autoimmune state, right, which I find most people in that have been in a sympathetic state for any given amount of time, have a weakened immune system because they're not diving down into that parasympathetic rest, relaxation, sleep phase, right? The deep sleep. How many people you know have CPAPs, sleep with CPAPs, or, extra oxygen pressure at night?
Too many.
They're not getting down into the state that they need to do, where all the body detoxification, the processing of everything that happened in your day, mentally and emotionally, and body repair and regeneration, all happens in that pretty much deep sleep, and they're not getting down in there. So when they're not getting down in there, they have a weakened immune system, but when the immune system needs to make a response, it tends to be an uncontrolled, uncoordinated response.
Haphazard.
And so, haphazard. And the reason being is because their cytokines are a messenger from the immune cells that say how much inflammation is there currently around, right? If those inflammation signals are currently high, then when they get a signal to amplify them, they're going from maybe 15 up to 60 or 70 out of 100. Whereas the average person may have extremely low cytokine levels because the immune system, I'm okay with everything. I don't need to amplify my immune system. So traditionally, that's what I see, is that it's a over uncoordinated response because they're not really well, let me say it this way. When you get down into a parasympathetic nervous system balance at night and you get in deep sleep, and melatonin aids this, then the processing happens. Then you don't need an uncoordinated response because you don't need a big response because your cytokine and your inflammation levels are actually lower. So the cytokine storm seems to be the big pathogenic part of the COVID syndrome right now that they're seeing, that they're trying to get a handle on it. And I know that I've read an article about melatonin's ability to manage those cytokine storms and keep them in a manageable state rather than them getting overdone. Well, and I think that's because they're able to, melatonin helps them get down into that deep sleep parasympathetic state where they're actually able to do the business of the night.
I have a question.
Sure.
So for those people that hear what you just said, a portion of our listeners will take away, I need to go get some melatonin. I need to be taking melatonin. Now, number one, folks, your body makes melatonin. Number two, if you're running in a sympathetic state too long, and you're, as Dr. Peter said, which is quite rampant in society because of all the mass information that is literally trying to go through your system and you're exposed to every day. It feels like, I joke with my staff about this, it feels like I go through 3 to 4 days in one day because the amount of information and the scale with which I'm spinning plates right now. But I still decompress at night. I get away from electronic devices and I create a dark room to sleep in. And I don't sleep in front of any TV that goes and puts me to sleep. There's no TV in my room. Bed is for sleeping. Bedroom is for sleeping. My point for mentioning that, Peter, in the question in here then, is that if we can create melatonin with complete darkness and your body starts creating melatonin after 4 hours of complete darkness, anytime you jump up in the middle of the night and check your phone or even turn on the lights, you're changing that melatonin production there after 4 hours. Correct?
Absolutely. Correct.
So
I'll give you.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Well, on one hand, people are going to think, I need to supplement from this. And I know there's a danger in supplementing melatonin over time. Like they're going to create a new problem if that's how they're always doing it rather than addressing. So I want your opinion before I answer that in terms of what's your take on that? Could it be a good short-term thing, but where do people watch out in the long run? And then how can they support it through natural means?
Well, I am in alignment with your take about we need to create good sleep hygiene, just like you need to. It's your responsibility to do it. Nobody else is going to do it for you. And what you mentioned are really great tools to help perk that melatonin production back up. Some people may have a problem with melatonin production just due to the fluoride levels in their body, which kind of poisons the pineal gland. However, I can give you a very quick, usable idea. I don't like to use long-term melatonin. I would only use it. I use it every once in a while, and I'll tell you exactly when I use it and what is the indicator that I use it in my own self. And I'm not recommending this for anybody. I'm just sharing my personal experience right now. If you go to sleep at night and you dream and you wake up and you go back to sleep and you dream again and you continually wake up with the exact same thought in the dream or in your mind over and over and over, you're not processing it, which means you may be helped by creating some conditions that would enhance melatonin production. So personally, if I get into that kind of a stage and I know I need that, I'm waking up with the same thought I'm not processing, I'll do some meditation and flow the energy, but I might also the next night take a small dose of melatonin and see if that just helps help process through whatever is not being processed. And that's okay, but I'm not a big believer in becoming dependent on taking melatonin because your body does do it. And as soon as you start taking it every night, your own production, there's a negative feedback and you'll stop producing it. But if you're taking good sleep hygiene, you're creating good sleep hygiene, and you still find that you maybe just get into a situation where you can't process it, I would do meditation, how I described in my earlier video. And then you could always just take, one night of melatonin and see if that helps process it through.
That's great advice. That's awesome. And it's just sound to know that the biofeedback your body has, folks, the real goal is, can you get a change to help your immediate crisis, but think about what you do long-term to support back to healthy function and physiology. And that's where some of this information, you're not going to see that in the mainstream. They're trying to sell product. They're not going to tell you there's a long-term disadvantage to this that creates a new set of problems. That's a hormone your body creates for a reason. And the feedback that you're not having, it could either be genetic familial trait, maybe it's metabolic, maybe it's methylation, maybe it's and it could be as simple as, that's why we're saying rule it out. Sleep hygiene, work with what you can, then take an educated approach to this, ask questions. Dr. Peter, this is awesome, dude.
Oh, yeah, it's been fantastic.
The sad thing is you look like you're having fun. And so my question is, if you've not been doing this, then where are you getting your fun?
Oh, you finally got me over here. So
I've only been bugging Dr. Peter for about 9 to 12 months. So
has it been that long?
About 9 months for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay. Dude, you're here, and that's what matters. There's no judgment. So thanks so much. That was a great parting thought. You just kind of wrapped up the hygiene portion, and then obviously a respect for what long-term dosage does. So thanks, folks, for watching, and watch for some updated new episodes with Dr. Peter, where we dive even a little deeper into individual areas that came up in this talk. Ciao. Okay, my fellow health warriors, it's time to head over to iTunes, franklyspeakingdrwade.com. There, you can rate, review, and subscribe, as well as share, so more of our brothers and sisters can grow to realize their voice and their health freedom. Speaking up means you matter, so get on it. This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements or views expressed are not medical advice and are not meant to replace the advice of your medical doctor. This podcast, including Dr. Wade Anderson and his guests, disclaim responsibility for any adverse effects you may experience from the specific use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse and accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about the guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for such services or products. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical condition, consult your licensed physician.